In this lesson, we will learn how to create a fleshy eye system. The idea behind the fleshy eye is that we'd want the eyelids to be affected by the rotation of the eyeball. And by setting something like this up, we can create an extra sense of realism in the eyes. Let's go ahead and get started. What we'll do is go ahead and hide the mesh. And we'll go ahead and create a few nodes. The first one's going to be an expose node, which exposes the transforms of the object that we choose. And then the other object is to zero out the transforms of our eye bone so that when we start to work with the expose node and we tie that to our upper and lower lids, they'll start with 0 values. Alright, so everything is going to be clean once we go ahead and set all of this up. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll head over to our Create panel. Underneath Helpers, we'll find the Expose node. From there, let's go ahead and just click anywhere in our scene to add it. And we'll now use Shift-A to quick align it over to the eye bone. Alright, great. We can now have this linked over to the head bone. And we could have this renamed to expose _L_I01. Let's say we go ahead and clone this object. We'll rename it expose RI01. And we'll now quick align it over to the right eye. Alright, sweet. Now we don't have to freeze transforms on these objects because the transforms of the expose nodes will not affect anything. What we need is a bit of information from the expose node. So if we were to go to our modify panel, take a look, we can now go ahead and choose the object we'd like to expose the transforms of. Let's go ahead and bring our attention back to the left eye. We'll grab the expose node, we'll click on none, and then from there, let's go ahead and click on our eye bone. Alright, so take a look. What this tells us is that we have chosen that as the object to expose, and then we could also take a look at its parent object, which is important. Because if we were to scroll down a little bit further, you'll notice that we can now find the local Euler values of this object. So you can see x is 0, y is 0, according to this parent. But z is not zeroed out. And this is the most important axis because this is how we're really going to see the fleshy eye in the up and down rotational axis. So how do we zero that out? Well, that's what the next node is for. We'll go ahead and create a helper, and that helper is going to be the new parent of this bone object, and we'll want to make sure that we first align that helper's position and orientation to the bone so that when we link, again, there's no offset at all between the bone and its new parent, giving us 0 values. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. We'll head over to Create again, and this time we'll create a point helper. Again, we'll click anywhere to add it. I'd recommend sticking with a box display since our expose node is a cross display. So I'll go ahead and right click. By the way, if you'd like to change your display settings on the expose node, it's really simple to do. Just go ahead and scroll up a bit more, and you'll find the same properties that you would find on a helper. Alright, so when we go ahead and grab that new helper here, let's go ahead and use Alt-A to align this to the position and orientation of the eye bone. So again, that's going to be Alt-A. We'll now click on the eye bone and take a look. We can choose to align in position and orientation. Let's make sure all 6 are checked. Now we can click OK, and there we have it. So from here, we can go ahead and link this over to our head bone. And then we'd want to freeze its transforms. We could also give this a name. That's going to be PT_DRV_LI01. Alright, sweet. So from here, let's say we go ahead and clone this object. We'll rename this to RI01. We'll now align this over to our eye bone here. And click OK. Great. If we were to go ahead and press page up, you can see it's already linked to the head bone, but what we do need to do is freeze its transforms. Let's go ahead and take care of that. And now we can link our eye bones to these new parent objects. So let's go ahead and start with the left eye. We'll go ahead and link. And now let's go ahead and take a look. When we grab the expose node and take a look, at our local Euler values, you can see they're all zeroed out because we've made sure that the new parent is matched to this bone object transforms. Alright, sweet. Now, let's say we go ahead and freeze the transforms on our eye bone since we have relinked it. And we can do the same thing on the right side. So what I'll do is go ahead and grab the expose node. I'll go ahead and expose the right eye bone. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at our transforms. You can see they're not zeroed out. So all we need to do is go ahead and have this bone object linked to its new parent. When we do that, we can go ahead and freeze the bone's transforms. And now when we go back to our expose node, take a look, our values are zeroed out. Alright, sweet. So it's now time to create the fleshy eye system. Now, I'm going to go ahead and work on the left side because the right side is basically going to be the same steps. Alright, so let's go ahead and focus on this left side, and we'll start with the upper lid. I'll go ahead and press the Q key to exit the link tool, and we'll head over to our motion panel. From here, let's go ahead and expand the Assign Controller rollout. Remember, we're focused on the main axis first, the Z-axis. So now we'll go ahead and search for our Zero Euler Z-axis. There it is. We'll now assign a float expression to it. Alright, sweet. The great thing about working with an expression is that we can add to it easily. So when we're ready to create our blinking control, we can simply add to this expression. Let's go ahead and create a variable that we will assign the rotation z of our eyeball to. We'll go ahead and create a variable named flesh_eye. Let's now click create, and with it selected, we'll search for our expose node. So we'll expand the outside of our neck control, expand the outside of the neck bone. Here's the head bone. We'll expand the outside of that, and we'll search for the expose node. Here it is. So we'll expand it to get to object. I'll go ahead and scroll down a bit more. I'll also adjust the dialog a bit, stretching that out so we can see what we need to click. And we'll go ahead and grab, there it is, the local Euler Z. Let's now click OK. Now, this upper lid bone should rotate a fraction of the amount that the eye bone rotates. So what we could do is type in the following. That's going to be the name of our variable, flesh_eye, times 0.5. So half the amount of the eye bone. Now when we evaluate this, watch this. Let's go ahead and close out of our expression controller. You'll notice that when we go ahead and grab the eye bone, I'll also bring the mesh back so we can see this. When we start to rotate, you'll notice that the upper lid now slides a bit, creating the illusion of the eyeball influencing the eyelid. How cool. So when we get to the lower lid, we're going to want to use a fraction of the amount that we've used for the upper lid, as it shouldn't move as much. So we can work with 20%. Now keep in mind, we did flip the lower lid, so we just want to make sure that we use a negative value instead of positive. Alright, so let's go ahead and set this up. And just FYI, if you ever need to get back to your expression, if you don't quite like the value that we're using here, perhaps your character uses something different, all you need to do is go ahead and select the Rotate Z controller, right-click and choose Properties to get back to your expression controller. Alright, sweet. So going to the lower lid, what we'll do here is, again, assign a float expression to the Z controller. Now, let's create our variable. We can use the same variable name, flesh_eye. We'll choose create. We'll choose assign to controller. And what's great is that 3ds Max remembers our path, so we should be able to search for the local Euler Z a lot faster now. Let's go ahead and click on OK. And we'll create our expression. So that's going to be flesh I times negative, let's say 0.2 or 20%. Now when we click on evaluate, watch this. When we grab the eye bone and bring back our mesh, as we start to rotate, you'll notice that, alright, there it is, the lower lid is now moving. So take a look at the realism we create with this fleshy eye system. Fun stuff. Alright, so how can we take this a step further? Well, we can get the rotate y-axis involved so that there's a little bit of sliding in our twist axis. Alright, so let's say we go ahead and set this up to finish off this lesson. And let's say we use about 20% for both. So remember, when we get to the lower lid, we'll flip that value around since the bone is flipped. But we'll start with the upper lid. We'll go ahead and hide our mesh. We'll go ahead and grab the upper lid. We'll find the rotation Y controller, and we'll assign a float expression controller to it. Alright, now it's time to create our variable. We can use the same name, Fleshy. Choose Create, Assign, and we'll search for the local Euler Y-axis this time. From there, let's say we go ahead and create our expression, so that's Fleshy times 0.2. We'll evaluate this. We'll test it out by bringing back our mesh after we've selected the eye bone. Then we'll start to move this side to side. Take a look at that. Look at the realism that we've created. And this did not take much time at all. Alright, so let's finish this out by working on the lower lid. So with that selected, we'll go ahead and find the y-axis. We'll search for our float expression controller. Let's create our variable. Fleshy, create, assign, and there it is. The y-axis, we'll choose OK. And how will our expression look? Well, that's going to be Fleshy times negative 0.2. So when we go ahead and evaluate this, watch. I'll go ahead and bring back the mesh after selecting the eye bone. And there it is, our eye rig. How fun is that? Cool. Well, once that's finished, you can go ahead and do the same thing for the right eye. I'll do that in between lessons. Now, what are we going to do in the next lesson? Well, let's say we get back to creating controls, and we'll go ahead and create a head control for our character.